Part A then. Which value of x cannot be included in the domain of f? Okay, so if we look at f, we know that we cannot divide by 0. If we do 1 divided by 0, we actually get infinity, or we sometimes say that that is undefined. We're not allowed to divide by 0. And the value of x that would make the bottom here equal to 0 would be if x equals -2. So if x was -2, the bottom would be -2 plus 2. -2 plus 2 is 0. 1 divided by 0 is not allowed. So the value of x, which cannot be included in the domain of f, is x is equal to -2. X cannot be -2. Which values here of x means we're looking for more than one value. Okay, which values of x cannot be included in the domain of g? Well, we know that g of x is equal to the square root of x minus 1. Now, we're not allowed, okay, so basically we're not allowed to have the square root of a negative number. In other words, we're not allowed to have x minus 1 less than 0, because less than 0 means negative. And if we're not allowed to have x minus 1 being less than 0, if I just add 1 to both sides of that inequality, we get x is less than 1. So we're not allowed to have, and you have to read this carefully, which values of x cannot be included in the domain of g. X less than 1 is what we're not allowed to have. Okay, next bit, we're trying to find fg of 10. And remember, this means that we find f of g of 10. So our first job is to find this, g of 10. Remember, we don't do anything with the f to start with. We just write f, and then we work out what g of 10 actually is. Now, g of x is the square root of x minus 1. You can see that up here. So g of 10 is going to be the square root of 10 minus 1. Okay, so just leave the f where it is, and let's work out the square root of 10 minus 1. Well, that's just the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is actually just 3. So our job is to work out f of 3. Well, we can see from up here that f of x is 1 over x plus 2. So f of 3 is going to be 1 over 3 plus 2. And 1 over 3 plus 2 is just 1 over 5. Now, those of you who like to do this, actually, I'm not going to do it the other way. We'll just leave it at that. It's a bit difficult the other way. Okay, to find the inverse function, remember, we're trying to find g to the minus 1. The first thing we have to do is write y equals g of x. Okay, so we can see that g of x is the square root of x minus 1. So I have to write y equals the square root of x minus 1. And what I have to do now is make x the subject. So the first thing I'm going to do here is square both sides. So the left-hand side becomes y squared. The right-hand side now, oopsie, the square root's disappeared, and we're just left with x minus 1. To get x on its own now then, I just need to add 1 to both sides. So I get y squared plus 1 is equal to x. Now remember, this is now my inverse function, but what I must be careful of is that my inverse function, rather than being y squared plus 1, is going to be x squared plus 1. Now let's just check how they want me to give the answer. Well, look, they want us to write in the form g to the minus 1 of x is equal to. So I'm going to write g to the minus 1 of x equals, and then stick this in, equals x squared plus 1.